and a couple of folks had the wrong link. So while we get those technical things started, we'll go ahead and bring up the agenda and okay. And we're going to go ahead and start the State Technical Committee meeting for Tuesday, July 18th. And we'll start with a presentation. We have a tally of those that are online, but in the room here, would you do quick introductions, Chris?
Sure. Chris Sigmund with TMAG.
Mark Goodson, state agronomist.
Tim Peters, NRCS state engineer.
Yuri Plowden, state soil scientist.
And can everyone hear them? Can someone just give me a thumbs up or let me know that they can be heard?
They could speak up a little bit more or get closer to the mic, that would be better.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to have Damien, would you like to introduce our first speaker?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Damian Loper. I'm the, as everyone knows, I'm the district conservationist for Dauphin County. More importantly, for terms of today, I'm also the urban conservationist for the city of Harrisburg, Steelton, and High Spire boroughs. Over these past couple of months, with me getting introduced to urban ag and realizing that's really more of a community thing, that's not necessarily like what us as planners are generally used to, working one-on-one with farmers with some help from partners, whereas this is more unique, where this is more community driven from the local government down to local working groups and various nonprofits. I was actually introduced to George Payne a couple months ago through a mutual contact, and he invited me to participate in the development. Him and his wonderful staff are working to develop the long-term urban ag plan, as well as George and his staff also work hard to secure various grant fundings through, whether it's through the state, through EAP, local foods, local people, or through the different USDA programs that are out there in order to help spread the wealth for the various community gardens. And without further ado, I'll let George take it from here.
Hi, this is sound check. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Fantastic. Hi, my name is George Payne. I'm 40.
Yep.
And I'm going to, if I may, share my screen.
We should be able to share now.
Okay. Let's see. No, that's not it. Hang on. Sorry. There we go. Are you able to see my screen okay?
Yes, let me just see if I can adjust this so we're not seeing everything else.
Okay.
How's that? Go ahead, George.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you again, Damien, and everybody for inviting me to present some of the work we're doing around urban agriculture here in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. As I mentioned, I'm with the Harrisburg Redevelopment Authority, and I'm the Director of Projects. And the Redevelopment Authority's mission is to redevelop vacant, unused property for primary and productive use. That's usually for commercial and residential development, but obviously green space is important, as well as urban agriculture. And in our work in 2019, actually 2016, we received an EPA brownfields planning grant to look at the different industrial blighted areas for distressed neighborhood in our city, South Elson Hill. And it's a 3-year grant, and it resulted in the plan being complete in 2019. And the plan noted and incorporated the residents' felt need for access to grocery stores, and also for the need for fresh produce. And that's consistent with most of Harrisburg being a food desert, as you know, as found in the USDA's ERS system. So building on that, then there was the EPA and USDA put out a technical assistance project called Local Foods, Local Places, or LFLP. So that was leveraged from this brownfield plan, and that coordinated urban agriculture stakeholders, urban growers, other stakeholders, and galvanized us around developing a food development strategy in the city. And that included the development of a comprehensive plan for urban agriculture, so that we don't do urban agriculture in sort of a haphazard way. So our Harrisburg local food, local places stakeholders include public entities, City of Harrisburg departments of planning, parks and recreation, health inspection, as well as some municipal agents or quasi-municipal authorities like the Harrisburg Redevelopment Authority and Capital Region Water. And involves community and service and health agencies, Hamilton Health Center, which is a federally health qualified center, Tri-County Community Action Agency, nonprofits like the Salvation Army and Central PA Food Bank, as well as subject matter experts like Penn State Extension, and including residents. And of course, a major component of the stakeholders are urban agriculture developers and farmers, Waldhart and their Joshua Farm, the Bridge and their fantastic Eco Village project that they're doing at a school, former private school, a small farm, sole proprietor's farm, a community neighborhood garden called Shadow Garden, and an urban agriculture organization that has done a lot of work in coordination with these different organizations, and that's called City Farm and Turf, as well as a local trainer of horticulture, Ngozi. So from the Local Food, Local Places Committee, there was a Urban Agriculture Comprehensive Planning work group, and we meet bi-monthly, and it's primarily composed of myself, city planning, those urban growers, Penn State Extension, as well as USDA with Damien involved. Okay, now the goals and the outcomes for a comprehensive urban agriculture plan. So what exactly is that? Well, the primary goal was to provide guidance to anybody, to residents or nonprofits or urban agriculture enterprises of how and what to do in the city if they're interested in doing urban agriculture. And so one is regulatory. First outcome, we want to achieve our city regulations and ordinances that would govern neighborhood residential individual residents and plots. So if I'm interested in doing a little urban garden in my backyard, are there any regulations or things I need to pay attention to? For instance, composting and things like that. And just also for community gardens, commercial gardens, urban farms, husbandry, types of different farming, indoor and outdoor, vertical gardening, and indoors, hydroponics, hypoponics, and things like that, as well as farmers markets. And we wanted to develop this comprehensive plan with stakeholder input and present it to city administration and the city council, because they are the ones that would review and ratify it. A second outcome then would be a handbook that provides guidance and resources for anybody as well, if they're just interested in urban agriculture in Harrisburg, what and whatever type or scope of activity that would be, just a sort of a how-to, where-to guidebook for anybody so interested. And the third impetus actually for a comprehensive urban agriculture plan was the need for permanent urban agriculture and dedicated land, basically, throughout the city. A lot of plots and farms and things like that are, I'm sorry, what I had, are on temporary land, adopt-a-lots, or for instance, some are on HRA's properties, which would otherwise be, could easily be developed for commercial or residential use. And so there's not really a lot of permanency, but temporariness to a lot of enterprises. And we want to see if maybe through urban planning, we could, comprehensive urban agriculture planning, we can make some of these things permanent rather than just temporary. So in developing such a plan, these are our principles and methods. The first is to promote and not restrict urban agriculture. That's our, we're not here to restrict it. But yet we have to address co-location, residential matters such as any noise or waste or air quality or smell, and as well as, regulations around health and agriculture standards and soil in the city and things like that. And how we would do that so that we don't restrict it is to really regulate or qualify and quantify the objective and leave the means of how to meet that objective flexible. For instance, noise, what we thought we would do is identify acceptable levels of noise of operations of like heavy agricultural machinery and tractors, instead of codifying what types of machinery would be used or how big a farm it should be. For instance, there was one urban ag plan that said in in densely populated areas, a farm should never be more than 2 acres, because anything more than that would require tractors and heavy agriculture machinery. So instead of making those qualifications, because we have some farms that are 2.5 acres or in residential areas, we just say, okay, this is acceptable noise level, and we leave it up to you to meet that level, and they can find the different ways of doing that. So regulate the objective, leave the means flexible. Incorporate research. Don't reinvent the wheel. We use plans from other municipalities and other subject matter experts. Penn State Extension. We have Damien from the USDA and NTRS. Urban Ag plans from Pennsylvania. We used Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Cumberland County has a plan, and from similar and larger municipalities nationwide, like Detroit, Flint, I think Baltimore, and some universities. So this is our current work to date, and we're not done. We're building on all these elements. So, but these are things that we touch on. So I already mentioned like noise ordinance. For instance, for our noise ordinance, we would say farm equipment such as tractors, power equipment, or generators should operate only between dawn and dusk if under 90 decibels. If over 90 decibels, machinery should operate between 8 and 5 p.m. on weekdays. So, that's an example. Odor and air guidance, it's very general, like no use shall generate odors or dust that are offensive to persons of average sensitivities beyond the boundaries of the subject lot, something like that. So that, if there is an issue or there's a complaint, we can at least point to that. Hey, we do have an ordinance to this, but we can't really be too strict and quantify those sort of things. It's hard to quantify odor, actually. Things like structures and storage, refuse and compost bins being rodent resistant and located as far as practical from abutting residential uses, things like that. Setbacks for storage, greenhouses, high tunnels, things like that. The parameters of typical measurements for high tunnels. Fencing and barriers and pest prevention ordinances. Let's see. Making sure that if you're a good farmer, you will have fences just to prevent pests, but to make sure that that's a requirement. waste management ordinances, composting, organic material drainage, use of manure management, things like that. Then we go into husbandry and beekeeping ordinances. Beehives should be on rooftops, and ground hives, if there are ground hives, they should be allowed on acres on only a quarter of an acre or more, and limited to only 5 hives. So that's an example of a beekeeping ordinance that we have, and then to have a flyway barrier, so that if any of those hives do get knocked off, there is a barrier that will prevent them from just drifting into other property and things like that. Ordinances about domestic fowl. Like for instance, we do not permit roosters. We all have our own alarm clocks to keep us up, and so roosters will not be permitted. Miniature goats and sheep and other animals, we use something like poundage per square foot. So for properties between 2,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet, residents are permitted to keep no more and no less than 2 dehorned animal or female neutered male miniature goats, things like that. Pigs are not allowed, will not be allowed in the city limits. Then we'll be looking at and we're still, fleshing this out, urban agriculture business, commercial gardens and urban farms, ordinance for sale, if on their property, hours of operations allowable in residential districts, licensures, signs and parking. What ordinances should we have for farmers markets? And then zoning and placement. One method is to have a urban agriculture zoning overlay over the entire city. But we think what we'll do is have exceptions to current zonings, because we currently do that. And so we'll be crafting those sort of issues more. And so that's basically what we're doing with our attempt on developing an urban agriculture comprehensive plan here in Harrisburg. If I may, I'd like to just maybe end my presentation with some slides of pictures I took. Last week was Urban PA Farm Urban Ag Week, and we had Secretary Redding and a number of dignitaries and PA Department of Agriculture tour some of the agriculture activities in Harrisburg. So this is a shadow garden. This is a small residential garden, commercial garden. Community garden rather. It is actually in the heart of South Thousand Hill on a busy street, Market Street, and it's property owned by us, by Redevelopment Authority. My pictures are grainy, I apologize. So this is an arts garden as well as an urban agriculture garden. You can see the mural, and this is one of the murals when you're going into South Thousand Hill that just you see right off the bat coming in. That's Secretary Redding there. Some water storage options. Harvest of zucchini. And a presentation of the Urban Ag Week Declaration. The same organization that is overseeing the Shadow Garden does the healthy eating class, because supply of urban agriculture and food is one thing, but if there's no demand and understanding how to use and be healthier in our eating, then we can produce all we want, but there's no demand, and the need for it is for fresh and healthy produce is important. So teach them while they're young, and they teach grade school kids on healthy eating, cooking, and incorporating vegetables and healthy recipes. This is a commercial garden called the Joshua Farm, run by Wild Heart, which is a nonprofit beautification organization in South Thousand Hill. 2.5 acres. There's some greenhouses. And next to greenhouses is a plot of land where they're farming all sorts of different produce at this time. Another greenhouse or high hoop. There's some of the plants that are going to plant into the available space. On the back of the farm is they're going to convert the lot that you see on the right into a walkthrough on urban agriculture, on gardening in the city, because this is school district land that they're renting or that they're leased to use, and they're going to be training students and the public on all the steps for agriculture and growing and urban agriculture in a sort of a walkthrough step-by-step station format. The Bridge Eco Village, we have a private school in Harrisburg, the Bishop McDevitt High School, that had moved and relocated, and Gary Gilliam, former native of Harrisburg and former NFL player, purchased the property and is trying to develop a village of residential and urban agriculture commercial campus, basically, which would include hydroponics, vertical gardening, and zero energy facilities and use. They took the old football field, used the bleachers, and turned them into garden plots, as well as putting up raised beds onto the field itself. These are some of the raised beds that they purchased and filled in. And there's Mr. Gilliam. Mushroom compost and soil compost. These are pictures. Redevelopment Authority wrote a grant to the PA Department of Agriculture in order to get infrastructure dollars for all of the different entities. So it was a collective impact grant proposal that we did, and we were able to get 42,000 for various infrastructure needs for all the different growing entities in Harrisburg. And this was some of the pictures of some of the soil and raised beds and equipment that they used with that grant. And they are, in lieu of a greenhouse, which they'll be putting up soon, they use the concession stand as an incubator for their plants. All right, and that's the end of my show, and I will stop sharing.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. Are there questions from anyone on the line? You're welcome to unmute and ask George questions.
George, this is Damien. I just want to thank you for giving that was actually a really good presentation that you gave, and I'm happy that we were able to arrange for this. I think it's a good idea, especially with being on the state call. You have people working the state office from both the technical side as well as the program side. But I think with a lot that you presented today, I think could have a little bit more of a ripple effect in terms of with us getting the urban ag being really more in the beginning, more in the infancy stage. I think a lot of this could help with future plans as far as like what to offer through our programs and technical services. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure to share.
We do have a question here in the room.
George, thanks for your presentation today. I have a question regarding one of the biggest issues that we run into in urban areas is control of land.
Yes.
And cities, potentially with vacant lots, allowing producers to have that control and giving documentation for that. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that was one of the impetus of trying to develop the comprehensive plan. There's a lot of growers were saying, the backstory is there a way of codifying and, making sure that there is dedicated land for urban ag? And we're still struggling with that. First of all, it takes political will. And for instance, green space is important. Parks are important. And so if we have a public Parks and Recs department, where we recognize parks are important, we should also incorporate maybe into into Parks and Recs, urban agriculture as part of that. And so this is the sort of negotiations that we're trying to do in order to actually have the city recognize and make a certain percentage of vacant lots be urban ag, for instance. We're not, we're mulling around on these proposals, trying to put them into writing. So that's one thing we're doing now. As a innovative way, one thing we've done is we talked about, well, is there land that cannot be used for anything else? Vacant land that otherwise cannot be developed into commercial or residential. And so we worked with Capital Region Water, the utility, because they're working throughout Harrisburg for stormwater management. And there are plots of land which we own and we purchase as a redevelopment authority that they're going to use to put underground storage containment. And so, and that's a perfect place to put above ground urban ag. We won't use the water from the storage containment. We use water from other sources and, raise beds and make sure the soil's fine, of course. But so, for instance, there are 3 plots in Harrisburg that will be dedicated solely for community gardens that will never be anything else but urban agriculture, because they're built on infrastructure that can't be developed for anything else. So we're trying to tackle it from different ways, innovative ways, using undevelopable land that is good for urban ag, and also seeing if we can codify a percentage of land to be used for urban agriculture. And the city in previous administration asked us to purchase land for green space, and that's what we did. We purchased certain properties for green space, and some of that green space can be urban ag. So it takes political will, and it takes some codification, as well as innovative thoughts of finding land that has no other use.
George,
Okay.
I do have a question too. And as the Harrisburg Redevelopment Authority, so the intent and the intent of your future role in this would be to get grants and to provide that to smaller groups. And will you be assisting on some of the redevelopment, like the Broad Street Market, which is very timely? Is
Yeah.
that something you're involved in? And shared kitchens as well. You showed the young folks in a kitchen. Is that something you're looking at doing as an organization that assists urban ag?
Yes, absolutely. So part of that brownfield development redevelopment plan, they noted food development is a good use of blighted buildings and brownfields. So one of the plans was development of a food hub, a food accelerator that includes a commercial kitchen. There's a building on 17th Street in Harrisburg with a Coca-Cola facade. We call it the Coca-Cola building, and it's right next to Hamilton Health Center. It's very near the Joshua Farm and other places. And we like to develop that into a food hub, which has a commercial kitchen that mom and pop entrepreneurs could try their wares, and then in a farmer's market or a food court on the ground floor, start their business and springboard their business, for instance. That food hub would have a truck commissary and food truck commissary, storage, refrigeration storage, a year-round farmers market. That's that was the concept that came from the brownfield planning. That is our use, a good and productive reuse of land, which is our mission. I have written 2 grants already on behalf of the coalition of local food, local places of all the urban growers. We were able to get 42,000, to divide between 5 different agencies and farms that are growing in Harrisburg for infrastructure. And I'm waiting a USDA grant for infrastructure for about 350,000 to do the same sort of thing. So yeah, we're trying to, make sure that food development happens here in Harrisburg. And we try as the redevelopment authority to equip and be a lead with the various urban growers and stakeholders.
Great. Thanks. Are there other questions for George? Yes, Chris.
Thank you. Hi, George. Just a question about the extent to which you're seeing interest in organic certification within the urban setting, given the smaller scale and maybe the desire to add more revenue per square foot or something like that.
Did you hear the question, George?
I did. Organic certification is difficult. And well, as you all know, the farmers I know are all they're all conservationists. Some were organic farmers before as well. But to grow organically in the city and get that certification would be tough. I think we're more interested to produce healthy produce and trying to make sure that residents are exposed, educated, made aware, and to just increase their intake of healthy produce. So no, the organic part, that organic certification, I haven't heard much push on that because I think that would be, maybe later down the road. Right now, we just want to grow good, healthy food that's safe, obviously. So for instance, if there are some ways of collecting water, rainwater, and some would come from roofs, that would not pass organic certification, for instance, but it would still produce healthy and good food.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much, George, for presenting, and we'll look forward to having you come back and tell us of your success with the project.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
All righty. You're welcome to stay on. I'll be talking about urban ag a little bit later, so you're welcome to stay on with us. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
And I'm going to pass it on to Tim Peters for our engineering report.
Very good.
If it comes, yeah, there we go.
I can share my screen.
Oh.
Share. Yeah, I'll share.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, good afternoon. Tim Peters, state engineer here with NRCS, and the agenda says Mark Buckwater, but yeah, it's Tim that's talking this morning. So if you have any follow-up, make sure to reach out to me. Just a couple things I wanted to update everyone on. And of course, standards. So big thanks to Ted Evans. He did send out 2 standards last week, I believe, and they're going to be due back with comments August 11th. So if you have any opportunity to take a look at these, that would be greatly appreciated. And I'll just highlight a couple of things with these standards. The first, for 656 constructed wetland, they naturally did make some changes where they are now referencing the National Engineering Handbook, Title 210, Part 637, and they have a Chapter 3 constructed wetlands, which covers a lot of the information that had been in the standard. So they pulled some of that information out and now just reference that NEH Chapter 3. As for 606, they did a couple of things. One thing that they did do is added to the definition of the standard to include managing slow water conditions. And then along with that, they added a purpose to address plant health and vigor, and then to address undesirable plant productivity. Now, along with the standards, when Ted sent them out, he also sent a summary of changes that happened, but those are some of the highlights with those two. Nothing huge, nothing significant in my opinion, but those were some minor changes. And I would love to get these finished and ready to release with some other ones that we've sent out to you for comments earlier in the year. And I'm looking to have those published on Photog come October 1. Now, it's not the only standard.
And those were sent out already?
They were sent out by Ted last week, and comments are due August 11. Now, two more that haven't been sent out that I need to get out by the end of the year. I'd love to get these published as well, October 1. So I'm on a little bit of a tight timeline, but two that I still need to finish at our state level to get ready for you to comment on are 635, which is vegetated treatment area, and 378, which is pond. Now, the 635, I'm working with National on a couple of things. The national standard came out, and the first thing it did, one change for us, is that it excluded livestock completely from vegetated treatment areas. Now, traditionally in Pennsylvania, we have fenced out VTAs, but we have also allowed flash grazing as a way of harvesting when conditions are ideal to get animals in there. So working with National, they are allowing a variance for us to still do that, as long as that vegetated treatment area is part of a 528 conservation practice standard 528 prescribed grazing plan, which is very appropriate. That's a good thing. I don't think that's a widely used way of managing vegetated treatment areas, but it is something that has been done in Pennsylvania traditionally. So that's one thing. The other thing the national standard did is that it limited vegetated treatment areas to 6% and no steeper than 6% slope. Now, in parts of the state, especially Western PA, up in the northern part of the state, we have a lot of areas where slopes are just steeper. It may not be as big of a challenge in the southeast, but even in the southeast, it's easy to get over 6% at times for what we want to implement vegetated treatment areas. We currently have a design guide in Pennsylvania that's been widely used, very accepted, and that has tools that allow us to design vegetated treatment areas up to 15%. Talking to National or National Discipline Lead, they're open to us doing a variance to continue to do vegetated treatment areas up to that 15%, which is what we've been doing. But I need to give them documentation of good examples of vegetated treatment areas that are on those steeper slopes. So I guess this is a request to you. If any of you out there have example projects or been involved with a project that used a vegetated treatment area on a slope that's steeper than 6% and it's being operated and managed well, and you have pictures, shoot that to me. That would be terrific. You can email that directly to me and Peters, or you can get that back through Ted, doesn't matter. So those are a couple of things going on with vegetated treatment area. And then finally, the last standard that I want to get out this year on the engineering side is 378, which is our pond standard. And we needed to go in and relook at the allowable pipes that are being used within our pipe standard. So we're currently crunching the numbers, staff at the state office are crunching numbers to confirm that pipes meet the criteria that's established in the national standard, so we can add those pipe materials back into the standard. And so we're working through that. As soon as that's finished, we'll get that out to the state technical committee for your review as well. Let's see, what else? I mentioned, or Mark Buckwater maybe mentioned in a previous state technical committee meeting, that we were going to be moving our NRCS engineering tools to Photog. We have moved them over. We haven't removed them from the website. They've always been housed on the PA NRCS website. Nationally, they don't want that done anymore. They want everything housed on Photog. So they are sitting in Photog section 1 right now. They can be accessed there, but they can also be currently accessed on the website, and we just need to take time to go in and remove that. So that is something that we plan to do in the near future. Whenever we do go in and remove those from the website, what I plan to do is have a link to Photog section 1. So if you go to the website, you're still going to be able to find the documents. You're just going to get redirected to another link. And putting them in Photog makes sense. That's where our standards and many other tools are. So it does seem appropriate. It's just a little bit of a change for me and everyone else to get used to going to a different place when we want to access these tools. And then I'll also mention that some of the tools that were on these websites are, well, they've been there for a while. So I do want to go back and start looking at some of the tools we have up there, specifically our standard detail drawings. So over the next year, I plan to do some purging. We're going to work here at the state level to see if there are standard drawings that are no longer used, no longer applicable, or if there are some that need changes made. And as I do that, we will highlight that at our state technical committee meetings. So just a couple things happening there. I mentioned, and I want to follow up with a little bit more information, but we mentioned at a previous meeting that we are now going to be accepting the concrete type 1L cement. And this is something that's we're seeing across the state at concrete plants. This is the cement that's available. It's often an option. Sometimes it's the only option. And what this concrete type IL cement is, it's a climate smart friendly cement. And so this type 1L or IL actually contains between 5 and 15% lime. And the reason that it's being promoted is that that cement mix doesn't need to be heated the same way that traditional cement would be. So there's a big energy savings by going with this IL cement, 1L cement. And nationally, we mentioned that we put a bulletin out to accept this. So we have updated our concrete specs already in Photog to allow this IL cement to be used, 1L cement to be used. But one caveat is that nationally, they are recommending that the cement, the IL cement, have a limit of 10% of the lime in that mix. So I said it could have between 5 and 15%, but nationally, they're recommending that we only allow it if it goes up to 10%. So whenever a concrete mix comes in, NRCS right now is looking at that concrete mix and confirming with the concrete plant that if this 1L or IL cement is being used, that specific product doesn't have lime contents higher than 10%. And that's something that's going to evolve, I think, over the next year. I think nationally, they're going to come up with additional guidance on that. But right now, nationally, NRCS engineers are comfortable with the cement when it has up to 10%, but above that, they're not saying it's bad. They're just saying we don't have a comfort level with that yet, and we need to see more before we allow that or recommend that. Okay. We've been busy partnering with some others to put together another round of our boot camp, our Agricultural Conservation Technical Training Basic. And so we are going to hold that again in August. So you may recall that we held that basic training twice in the spring. We had right around 60 people attend in the spring, our basic session. In addition to that, we held the boot camp basic training, or basic level 2, I'm sorry, in the spring. In August, though, we're just going to hold basic once more. There have been a lot of hires, some within NRCS, but a lot with our partners. And so right now we have 27 registered. Of those 27, 20 are conservation district staff, 5 are NRCS, and I think 2 are DEP. So it's a lot of new employees, especially at the districts. And with this training, we're partnering. We partner with the PACB to help offer this always, but then Penn State has stepped up and they're helping to provide some instructors. NRCS is still providing a lot of the instruction as well. It's about half and half, but it is a good partnership as we work together. It's kind of yes. Third question. Okay, this is kind of a spinoff or part of the center that NRCS is partnering with Penn State and the State Conservation Commission on. And so we see this as a great opportunity to work together with our partners and train the new employees that all of us are seeing being hired. And we expect to continue this moving forward. And it's a lot of work getting this together, but we see the need and we're excited to offer that again in August. And one more thing. You've probably seen the news. Pennsylvania had some big storm events, nothing like Vermont and parts of New York, but we have had some big storms in Pennsylvania. Right now, we are in the process of doing a rapid survey where we're just looking at the Pennsylvania situation. We can come back in and do EWP. That's our program where we go back and stabilize stream banks for protecting structures that are in jeopardy of being lost from a large storm event.
Can you spell EWP for everybody? Just
Emergency Watershed Protection Program. Sorry, yeah, I'm stuck in my own language, the acronyms that we talk, right? And so this program, we can stabilize stream banks if there's a structure that's in jeopardy of being lost. If that structure's within 50 feet of a stream bank that's eroded because of a large storm event that's come through. So right now in the process of just looking to see if that is the case in Pennsylvania. Did we have storm events that caused that? And should we open up the EWP program again for this year? So that is the engineering highlights that I had And are there any questions?
Are there EWP, the Emergency Watershed Program?
Sure.
What was it, Bucks County that had the storm and the mother and two little kids that were lost?
Yes.
Do we have population limitations or any of that on EWP?
Population
I
limitation.
mean, are there criteria that says, okay, this county or this
So,
particular area is not eligible as opposed to this area?
and that's what we're doing right now is we're looking to see what areas were impacted. And so we can open this program up to whatever areas have been impacted. There's no limit to us today. It's just that we have to have documentation that there was an extreme storm event that caused this damage, and then we can incorporate those counties into the program when we open it back up. Now, I will say, those stories were often about flooding, and flooding often accompanies the stream bank damage that we're targeting, but we do not have EWP does not help out with flooding. So if your house is flooded or your property is flooded, that's not something that fits within the EWP program. We're strictly looking at stabilizing stream banks to protect structures that could be in jeopardy of being lost.
And generally speaking, we're looking 50 feet.
50 feet. Yes,
50 feet within the stream bank of a home or business.
exactly. Correct.
Susan, just a little bit.
You must
So
be in the
Tim
wrong
was,
meeting.
are we still on? Tim
Yeah.
was very insightful and helpful in explaining a little bit about the technical center, but I want to talk about that from an NRCS perspective, because I think a lot of conversation has been happening with the Center for Excellence or the Center for Ag Conservation Excellence. NRCS has been and has always been providing training to conservation districts and non-governmental employees. If you're out there doing the mission of NRCS, then we will help train you, right? I remember one day, the deputy of water said to me, "You need to write us conservation plans." And I said, "That's an unfunded mandate. Just because your state legislature tells you, that doesn't mean that you can tell us as a federal agency to write plans for you. But I will do this as a state conservationist. I will teach you to plan. So you won't get the fish, but we'll teach you to fish." So a little bit of the conversation is that this partnership that's happening, and I'd just like to talk a little bit about that, is a partnership that is very keyed into working with the State Conservation Commission directly. And the State Conservation Commission is hand in hand our partner here at the state level that does nutrient management. They do manage the REAP program. And right now they have the Conservation Excellence Grants program as well as the Agricultural Conservation Assistance Program. And so what we've done is we have entered into a partnership with State Conservation Commission. We also have Penn State, and Penn State has contracted with the State Conservation Commission. So we're very fortunate that Penn State and the center is being led by Jen Feder is coming to us and offering different types of opportunities than we traditionally have done. If you know of what NRCS has provided over the years, we've done about, I think we're into year 30, Tim, maybe 20, at least 25 of providing hands-on conservation planning assistance and conservation technical boot camp assistance. Well, with the recent influx of ACAP, and we are going to see that additional influx of money in our programs, we need to really train our people. And so what we're doing is we're training our district partnership and our NRCS partnership. Traditionally speaking, we offered about 16 weeks a year of training. That's a lot of training. I have Tim here and Mark Goodson, who are sitting here, and Yuri Plowden and Susan Perry, actually. And they train and they train and they train because we have a significant turnover. What's happened is the influx of districts has added more people, and we've added more people, and we just can't get these people trained fast enough. So Tim has mentioned that the boot camps, boot camp 1 There were 2 held this spring.
Yep.
There was a boot camp 2 that was also held this spring, and there'll be another boot camp 1 this fall. Just to be clear, when we have those boot camps, I think it's important to that the work that we provide the training, State Conservation Commission provides some of the money to make sure the districts can come and attend those events. So just want to make that clear. And then we contract with PACD. A lot of times people think that PACD, it's their training. That's they very much help us, and we couldn't do the job without them. But the technical work comes behind through NRCS, and also a lot of the work is through the State Conservation Commission. So looking at that in the long term, we have a real need out there in the state. We have a need for introduction to conservation planning. That's the basics, learning the 9 steps of planning out there for NRCS and district employees. We also, what are we going to encounter when we are out there planning? Cultural resources. We're going to encounter cultural resources. We recently had a fence training in the Northwest that was dedicated to just how people, hey, this is how you install a fence. We also have a lot of engineering workshops that get tied to it, as well as our soil health and sustainability workshop that goes out to all of our district employees. Wetland workshops, several wetland workshops, because we don't need to be filling in or dredging wetlands, right, Gary? So, and then also our conservation planning through our more experienced planners out there. So all those things form a suite of practice of trainings, and you would think that that would be enough, but it actually isn't. And so we really are looking forward to the partnership with Penn State. They're going to bring the know-how. They just recently had one on equipment. They bring in know-how on animal husbandry. They bring expertise in the areas of agronomy as well as NRCS. So really want to have that center, looking forward to it. The center is one component, of course, is the training and training all the people. But we all know that even experienced people can make mistakes, right? Or get into bad habits. So part of the center is to make sure that we have quality assurance tied to that center. And so we really want to make sure that it's a center that people can come, ask questions, ask for job approval authority, look at really putting good conservation practices on the ground. So, and of course, when we do quality assurance, we're doing spot checks. So we're checking. One of the things that we don't talk about that we do quite a bit is 5% of all our practices are spot checks. So we go out, we look, we check, we review each other's work. And that's one of the foundations of this center as it was created. So just a little bit, I didn't mean to kind of belabor this issue, but I wanted to clear up. There were some conversations where was NRCS in the center? Where do we come in? Are we contracting with STC? No, we're going to continue to provide our work that's really free of charge, but it's teaching folks to plan and not providing the plan. And then the second thing is we're also going to provide some staff people to that center. So as soon as some things get up and running, we will have a conservation engineer up there, as well as an agronomist. So we really look forward to this continued partnership, because we think that we only hope that we're going to get more and more conservation assistance funding in future. So.
And Denise, just to build on that just a little bit more, I should have said, with the boot camps, it takes around 25 instructors, which have primarily, almost except for 1 or 2, traditionally been NRCS people for boot camp basic. And it was right around 30 instructors last year for boot camp 2. So it's a significant amount of people to make those trainings happen and to do that multiple times throughout the year is a significant time commitment on our end. And then I don't know if you want to mention the retired cadre as well.
Right.
So we also have the retired cadre that, you know, Denise highlighted really well all the formal trainings we're doing. There's a lot of mentoring, informal trainings. If district staff and NRCS staff need help in a more one-on-one or small group or mentoring type situation, then NRCS is also able to help out with that. And we have hired, we're going to be up to 6 on we're going to be up to 7 soon on our retired cadre, which are experienced NRCS people. They wouldn't necessarily have to be NRCS people, but they are that are retired and can provide some of that training and mentoring. And we have 2 engineers up in the Bloomsburg area. We've got 2 engineers down in the southeast. We've got a planner who's up in the Mill Hall area. We've got another technician down in Perry County, and then we're bringing another one on in Mifflin County. So there's a lot of opportunity there for district NRCS staff or STC hired staff to get some training and mentoring from these really experienced folks. I just think this is such a great opportunity. I'm very excited about being able to have this retired cadre to really just pass on all their experience and knowledge that they have, and I hope people take advantage.
And that was a joint agreement with the State Conservation Commission and NRCS, because we felt that, as Tim said, the OJT or the on-the-job training is really critical to what we do. And then just one other thing, as we're putting pen to paper, these get expensive. So as Tim says, as we look at it, you know, each boot camp we figure, when I'm budgeting, right, it's about $100,000. So just putting several of these on this year, we've got about $500,000 just NRCS invested. That's not accounting for all the travel time that State Conservation Commission pays for. That's just kind of instructor time, and I would say that's pretty conservative. So, but heads up, just wanted to thank everybody for that, as we were talking about technical areas and technical assistance. So I'll shut up and turn it back to you, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you. And thanks for all you do, Tim. We have up next ecological sciences, and Mark Goodson will be reporting out for that.
Right, my supervisor, the SRC, State Resource Conservationist, is out this week, and so I'll be reporting today. We've got a series of draft conservation practice standards that were recently set out by Ted Evans. We're looking for comments back to Ted by August 15th, and practice standards, riparian herbaceous buffer, grazing land mechanical treatment, feed management, wetland wildlife habitat management, upland wildlife habitat management, wetland creation, and wetland enhancement. So again, those are out for comment right now. They're probably in your inbox, and please take a look at those and report back any comments by August 15th. NRCS here in Pennsylvania wrapped up a 3-year evaluation of an interim practice standards for annual forages and grazing systems. The final report was sent out to the National Grazing Specialists, where in Pennsylvania is recommended that we convert this interim standard into a national standard. The practice supports the use of annual forages to either bolster forage supplies during the grazing season, extend the grazing season, or improve soil health. Most commonly, it will be utilized to grow and graze summer annuals and cover crops on cropland or to renovate existing pastures. This is the first year NRCS in Pennsylvania is evaluating interim practice standards 812 raised beds, 821 low tunnels, and 823 organic management. These practices are eligible for financial assistance through EQIP in the coming year, and will remain under evaluation for probably 3 years here. And finally, the Ecological Sciences Department here is going to be providing stream assessment training for field staff in August to teach them how to utilize the Stream Visual Assessment Protocol, or SVAP, This assessment is required when conservation planners are looking to plan and help landowners implement conservation practice standard, stream habitat improvement and management. The assessment is comprised of 15 elements and looks at stream condition, riparian condition, effects of nutrients, and in-stream conditions for aquatic habitat. So that's what we've got for today's report, and we finished a soils and sustainability training for field staff and partners this past week. So thank you very much.
Okay, are there questions for Mark? Okay, then we'll move on to our next presentation, which is Yuri Plowden, our state soil scientist.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Yuri Plowden, state soil scientist, but I wear several hats. So this afternoon, I'm wearing the hat of the state compliance specialist, who that's in my wheelhouse. My staff does compliance, HEL, and wetlands. And so I just wanted to report to the state technical committee an update on what's happening with our Pennsylvania state offsite methods for wetland determinations. Let's see then. So just a little brief background. In 1985, the Food Security Act was passed. And so now when we refer to it, we call it the Food Security Act of 1985 as amended. And it requires that USDA program participants have to comply with wetland conservation provisions. That's a long way of saying that if you are a USDA program participant, you are not allowed to drain or convert a wetland in order to grow commodity crops. So the National Food Security Act manual provides our internal agency policy related to wetland conservation of the Food Security Act. And the wetland determination process requires that a technical determination is done of whether an area is a wetland. So that's our wetland specialist will go out and determine if an area is in a wetland. So yes or no, is it a wetland? And then we make a separate determination of what the exemptions are. What label do we call that? So an example of a label would be something like PC, which you all are probably very familiar with, prior converted wetlands, or NW, non-wetland, or WX, a wetland that's been converted but not to make crop production possible. So those are examples of labels and exemptions. Go ahead. So if you want to read up more about that, you can go to the Code of Federal Registry. It's in 7 Part 12. But NRCS, we make or we approve the certified wetland determinations for USDA program participants. And as part of the regulations, we are to develop and utilize both off-site and on-site wetland identification procedures. So go ahead. So off-site, so we are allowed to use off-site methods to do our wetland determinations. Not every site requires that we be there digging a hole or looking at the plants. And so our state off-site methods they follow policy, and each state is allowed to develop a state offsite method and tweak it to each individual state. And so the national compliance specialist did come up with a generic state offsite method, which follows policy, which is one of the most important things with compliance. And then we are allowed to tweak it for Pennsylvania. So we have written a state offsite method for Pennsylvania, and we've submitted it back to headquarters for review. And eventually this will be posted, we hope this year, in the Federal Register. We hope prior to the next state technical committee meeting, but not sure if it's going to happen that fast. If you are interested in seeing an advanced copy, rather than sending it out to the whole state technical committee, I just invite you to send me an email and I will send it to you. And then you can take a look and ask any questions you want. And that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Yuri? Questions, requests? Okay, we'll keep this moving forward. And I will be doing the partnership update and easement update. Again, this is Susan Parry. So part of my role is to work with partners. And one of the growing segment of partners is small scale and urban agriculture, of course. And in PA, in fiscal year 24, we've been funding these projects in Philadelphia along with our service center in Philadelphia, and have this year, as of this year, we will have had 6 projects funded through the People's Guard Initiative. And certainly we want to be fair and equitable and look at other areas. So what we did was look at and if anybody would like to look it up, it's metropolitan statistical areas that are put out by the U.S. Census Bureau. And we looked at those and came up with a ranking method for those areas that will be rolled out. I think Jared will talk a little bit about that under programs. So other cities besides Philadelphia, we are looking to expand into those areas with funding and opportunities and technical assistance through that. And you can see the red, yellow, and orange would be the priority. Red is high priority. You can see Philadelphia, Erie, Mercer, Pittsburgh, Allentown, Reading, and cities like that, smaller cities. Harrisburg in Dauphin County is also in the red area. And then medium and low are those areas surrounding that, but included in the metropolitan area. So that's something we'll be doing in fiscal year 24. Thanks to, again, the Urban Ag Subcommittee came back with comments, and that was part of the reason we added a lot of small scale practices this past year, and those will be continued. There's also a national small scale and urban working group that one of our representatives from PA, Rosalind Orr from, I believe she's in Chester County now, is on that working group. And they just did a call last week, a meeting last week, to present some recommendations they come up with. One of the practices they're looking at is composting, looking at adding that as a practice for urban and small scale. And they also are looking at adding human resource concerns so that we can address some of the equity issues within the urban areas that we're working with. So that was something that they're going to be looking at, doing research on, and presenting in the future as well within the department to look at how we can better assist. Also, in terms of outreach, again, we're always looking how we can improve and reach non-traditional customers. Those, we've pretty much run the gamut of traditional operators that we've worked with over the years. So we're working with partners. There was an equity and conservation opportunity this year that we know we have several in Pennsylvania. There was to be a call tomorrow to connect the states with those that were funded in those states. But I know we do have at least 1 or 2 organizations that received funding through that, and they're in those agreements that they're setting up, they will be really looking at how we address barriers to program participation within NRCS. And we certainly look at our reports every year. We look at our demographics and how we are doing. But it is a struggle sometimes to find those that we have not worked with yet. So we're always looking to improve upon that. We joined with New York and New Jersey to do a cultural competency training for our staff. The first one was yesterday morning. The next one is next Monday morning. And that is just to really look at how we can address our own biases, whether we know it or not. We all have biases. And this was a really good training run by Grow NYC, which is an organization that's been working in New York City for many years doing different trainings. And everyone who attended, there was about 60 of us, but everyone who attended really did enjoy it and got something out of it. We're also, through that same agreement with Grow NYC, we're doing 2 farmer trainings. They're called Navigating the USDA. We realize one of the barriers we put in front of folks is what was termed even this morning at an event, red tape. We do have standards. We're a federal agency. So we want to help farmers to be able that have never heard of us before or never worked with us. Some of these, the urban farms we're working with now, maybe have never received funding from this type of program and never applied for government funding. I found a lot of that gap in knowledge. So we're looking to address that with 2 farmer trainings. One is in the evening this evening, and that is a Spanish version. That was one of the barriers we found, was that a lot of Hispanic farmers just don't have the capacity to navigate through some of our requirements. And, you know, a lot of staff don't have the ability to be able to talk to Spanish producers. So one of the young ladies from Pennsylvania, Diana Barnes, is on that training this evening. It's just an hour-long training, just talking about what USDA, FSA, Rural Development, and NRCS can do to help assist them. So that's this week, and then one in English next Tuesday at 6 p.m. for farmers. So that's something we've been working at. We also, Denise is not here, but I know our Philadelphia Service Center has been staffed. We have an urban soil conservationist that was hired 3 weeks ago, I believe. Freddie Patina Rodriguez. I don't know if you're on today, Freddie, but if you are, say hello. Maybe not. He's hard at work already. So he was hired. We also have Kafeni Kajela, who's been working in Philadelphia for a while. FSA has now hired a county executive director, Nina. I don't know if Nina is on today, if she can say hello, but we have an FSA county executive director in our service center, as well as a program specialist that was hired. We met with them last week. So Denise, anything you want to say about the Philadelphia Service Center since you walked in? I hear it's beautiful, right on Broad Street.
It is. It's in the Leon Sullivan building, so we're very excited. We are not moved in yet. Our folks are still working out of the Chester County office, but we hope furniture moves in August 10th. So we are hoping by the 3rd week in August that the Philadelphia office will be up and running, and looking forward to it, and looking forward to having a presence in Philadelphia.
And maybe we'll have a future state technical committee meeting there.
Well, it's a very nice office. It's very nice. It's a field office. Just keep in mind, it's a field office, but it's very nice.
Is there a conference room?
There is a conference room.
There you go. Okay. Okay. The last thing I'll mention, we did put out each of the states within the U.S. is supposed to have a state outreach coordinator. That's a position that's been put in place. It's been around for a long time, but we now have an outreach and equity division within the department. So we floated an announcement for a state outreach coordinator, and we could not hire the person that applied. So we're going to go back and do it again. So we just put out a detail request yesterday in our newsletter for someone to serve a detail on that, and we will be hiring a state outreach coordinator. So that's all I had for partnership, and now I'll go right into the easement updates. So we just had a wonderful event this morning on Hanover Shoe Farms. If anyone knows Adams County, they know Hanover Shoe Farms, one of the largest horse breeding operations in the eastern U.S. I don't know if the whole U.S., but it was a wonderful event. At least 50 people there, whether it was federal, state, and local folks. There were 11 easements. 6 of them were done through our programs, covering 1,785 acres. So several farms. And contributors included NRCS, the PA Department of Agriculture, Adams County Land Preservation Board, and the Land Conservancy of Adams County. So that was a great event this morning that we all attended. And ASEP ALE and grasslands of special significance were used for one of the farms. And the Regional Conservation Partnership Program was also used for some of that work. So that was a great accomplishment. Since 2019, that's been worked on. So it's a great accomplishment for us all. States, as far as easement closing, these are ones that had been started in previous years. NRC has helped to to purchase 12 easements protecting 1,800 acres of ag land since April 2022. So that's just ones that were not completed as of the beginning of last year. And then we had 3 Regional Conservation Partnership Program easements for a total of 524 acres in partnership with PA Department of Agriculture, and 9 Ag Conservation Easement Program ALE easements, that's ag land easements, 1,276 acres purchased in partnership with PA Department of Ag, and again, the Land Conservancy of Adams County. So that was closed as of this year. And then we have new contracts on 7 different properties, 7 different parcels, and that would be 752 acres, and 5 new RCPP easement contracts that have been obligated and have funding for 484 acres. And then our new easement application deadline is November 1st. Just so everyone knows, we'll be working hard to do some outreach and get new signups. We're ready for more. So I'm looking forward to that. If anyone has questions, either now or in the future, let us know. And that's all I have. Are there any questions from anyone? And if not, we'll move into
Some are farmland protection easements that are centered in the kind of 5 south central counties. And then also what's in the look ahead, we are starting our Kittatinny Ridge, which if members have been part of previous meetings, that is the ridge that runs from Franklin County all the way up into Monroe County. And so we are working diligently to do not just ag preservation easements along that ridge, but also forest land protection. So two separate RCPPs going on there.
Yep. I think Adam has a report later on that as well. Okay, moving on to financial assistance program update. Do we have Jared on? Or who's giving?
I am. Good afternoon, everybody.
Okay.
Hear me okay, Susan?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. So I'm Jared Chippy. I'm the Assistant State Conservationist for Programs located out of the Harrisburg State Office. And just a brief update from me today, and then I'll turn it over to the individual program managers for an update on their specific programs. Go ahead and do the next slide, please, Susan.
Okay.
Oh, I guess I got it. Okay, very good. So right now our field offices have been busy trying to finish up our fiscal year 23 allocation. So we've been writing a lot of contracts and a lot of different fund codes, including EQIP, CSP, our AMA, and for those of you that don't know all the acronyms, EQIP Environmental Quality Incentive Program, our CSP Conservation Stewardship Program, AMA Ag Management Assistance, and RCPP, the Regional Conservation Partnership Program. So they've been working hard this fiscal year, and I think we're finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel for this year's allocation. The program managers have been pre-approving some final applications and balancing the accounts, and we're hoping to get finished up earlier this year than we have in previous years, with the field being busy with construction and all sorts of other things. So just kind of a review update of some of the new things that we did this year in fiscal year 23. So we had the EQIP, the Inflation Reduction Act funds, and that was in EQIP and in CSP. So those were funds that were allocated specifically to those programs, targeting climate smart practices. The next one is the EQIP Organic Transition Initiative. And this is one that we got a little bit later in the year, but it's to promote that new practice that Mark had mentioned, the 823 organic management. So we have seen some applications come in for that, and we're looking to continue those in FY24. We also created a new fund code within EQIP this year for minor soil erosion. what we were seeing was a lot of folks that maybe had some issues in the cropland that needed some sort of structural practice, whether it's a diversion, a waterway, or a combination of both, may not have been ranking as high as some of the other applications in the general cropland fund code. So we were able to create this and create a separate ranking for that, to where we could help those folks work through the program where they may have had an application sitting in the queue for a couple years and just did not rank high enough for funding. Another initiative that we have that is not on this slide, we were also awarded funding for the Joint Chief Landscape Initiative, which looks at promoting forestry in our north central, northwestern part of the state. So typically for forestry, the western half of the state would get $200,000 allocated. This gives an additional $300,000 just targeted towards that specific area in partnership with the Forest Service and many other partners. One thing I'll say that Denise mentioned, this is unprecedented times for anybody looking to get into NRCS programs and work with us. The funding and the opportunities available are endless. And through Denise's leadership, we have been increasing staff. We've been providing additional trainings, as you heard Denise and Tim mention. So we're looking forward to a big 2024. I'll also give a kudos out to all of you partners that have worked with us to help landowners feel comfortable with signing contracts and installing. That money goes farther when we're working with partners, and we've done a lot with the districts with their new ACAP funding, as well as some of the other traditional programs like Growing Greener and things like that. So a big thank you out to those partners for sure. The next couple slides I just put in here. This was our climate smart mitigation list.
Sorry.
A lot of you have seen that, seen this list already, and I apologize, it's a little bit small. I even need to maybe get a magnifying glass to see those. But if anybody's interested in that list, I will say that this list is currently being looked at and revised for FY24. As Susan mentioned, we're looking to provide as much flexibility as possible to help participants implement conservation on the ground. So this list is currently being looked at the national level, and we're hoping to potentially increase some practices on that to make that eligible for the EQIP and CSP IRA funding in future years. We are also happy, as Susan showed the map, to extend the high priority areas for the Urban Ag Fund Code. So always looking to outreach to multiple producers, and this has given us an opportunity. Thank you to all that were involved in that. So we're happy to extend that to those other areas you saw on the map. Go ahead and go to the next slide then, Susan, please. So this is just an overview of our allocations for FY23. So as you can see, the Ag Management Assistance Program, that was spread out between all three areas of the state for Pennsylvania NRCS, and this targets high tunnels, irrigation systems, cover crops, things of that nature. EQIP General, I mean, that pretty much covers everything. CSP is a big program for us, the Conservation Stewardship Program. The Joint Chiefs Forestry that I mentioned earlier, we were able to allocate $350,000 to that. Our National Water Quality Initiative, we were able to go back and get an additional $300,000 on that because we had a lot of good projects. We wanted to try to spread it out amongst all of the eligible watersheds, so we were able to do that. Our Golden Wing Warbler Initiative, we were able to allocate $425,000 to that. And our Great Lakes Initiative, which is up in the north central, northwestern part of the state, we were able to target $325,000 to do a couple livestock projects up in that area. So go ahead to the next slide then, Susan. And just a quick review of what we have as far as upcoming deadlines for us. So August 11th, we've set to wrap up our FY23 contracting this year. So as I said earlier, the field offices, area offices, and we at the state office are all working hard to try to meet that deadline. And FY24, we're looking at EQIP, AMA, and RCPP for the first round sign up in November 1st. which will be consistent with what we did for our fiscal year 23. And this allows us to rank those applications and work ahead of our timeline, so we're not strapped towards the end of the fiscal year to try to obligate the remainder of our funds. CSP comes a little bit later, so we're looking at that one at January 1st. And this just allows us to stagger our programs a little bit. And that way the field office is able to work on multiple programs and they're not necessarily doing it all at the same time. So with that said, I will turn it over to Ryan Cornelius, who is the EQIP program manager, unless there's any questions for me.
I do see something. We just get into that. Is there another Joint Chief Planning meeting on the books yet? That's John Schwartzer. Is that something you can address?
I don't know that I've seen
Jared?
anything. Yeah, I don't know that I've seen anything recently. Denise, have you seen anything on the books as far as the planning for that?
The state forester. So as soon as we can get that position filled, that will be one of the first orders of business.
That answer your question? John, yeah? Okay. Oh, what did I do? I went to the end.
Yep.
Okay.
Alrighty, so I don't have a long presentation here today, but I'm Ryan Cornelius. I'm the EQIP program manager, and I just got some updates for EQIP numbers here so far. We're still working on contracting, but we're wrapping up. The end is in sight for FY23. So far, so these numbers are as of yesterday. We had 349 EQIP contracts obligated for a little over 22.3 million. On over 45,000 acres, and AMA program 12 contracts for 199,129 on just under 31 acres. So things are moving along. Here next time I'll have we should be wrapped up, and I'll have numbers for all the different initiatives and where we came out at the end of the year. And I know last time I talked about the post-inflationary supplemental payments, or PISPs, as we call them. So these are additional payments that that our agency has been able to put towards a list of practices that our economists have deemed weren't being paid at a sufficient amount due to the inflation, due to the rise in inflation. So I just wanted to give an update. So far, we have bought this modifications and payments on 256 practices, on 117 contracts for $317,000. So that's just that much more financial assistance to be able to help some of these practices get on the ground that otherwise may not have been able to. Yes. So that is all I have. I'll turn it over to Ashley.
Any questions for Ryan? Sorry, I had to switch out my battery. Thank you, Yuri, for your support.
Well, hello, this is Ashley. Can you hear me? I'm never really sure where to stand in this hybrid space. So I'm going to be talking today about, next slide, the programs that I oversee. So Conservation Innovation Grants, Conservation Stewardship Program, National Water Quality Initiative, and talking briefly about some national bulletins on source water and NWQI, or the National Water Quality Initiative. Go ahead. So for fiscal year 2023 Conservation Innovation Grants, you may remember I said there was a notice of funding opportunity out. And so we've ranked our applications. We're planning to fund 3 of the 5 agreements this year. Most of them were focused on soil health and legacy sediment. So we are currently processing our comments, and we're reaching out soon to finalize details with our applicants, and we won't announce those until they become finalized. We're looking to do that by August 31st. On to the next slide. Conservation Stewardship Program. Of course, our staff in the field are currently working with CSP Classic as well as CSP IRA, or our Inflation Reduction Act, which has to do with those climate smart practices that you just saw. We had an allocation of $2,558,180 for CSP IRA. We have 90% of that money obligated into contracts. So we have 74 contracts for $2.3 million on over 18,000 acres. And then for CSP Classic, which is the rest of the things that are not those climate smart practices, we had an allocation of $6.2 million, and we're at a 58% obligation rate. And you can see the numbers below it. We had 2 different signups to date that we're using to fund the contracts with that allocation. I just did select 5 more CSP Classic in sign up number 2 today, and we had 1 deferral, so we tend to shift money around as that occurs. Next slide. The next thing I want to talk about is the National Water Quality Initiative, and that is a program under the Environmental Quality Incentives Program that Ryan handles. But since I oversee that, I wanted to say we had an allocation of $1.3 million. We had initially $1 million, and then we requested $300,000 more. We're funding as many possible contracts as we can in our 5 watersheds to get those water quality results that we want to see. We're trying to eventually delist those watersheds. We want to reduce sediments and nutrients and things that are considered to be ag impairments. So far we have pre-approved 5 applications for over 1.3 million. So you see we added an additional $31,742 of EQIP money that we shifted over to the NWQI. We funded at least 7 contracts in other fund codes as well. So right now we're sitting at obligations of contracts at $631,466. So we're going to work up to that number I have above there of the applications that were pre-approved for funding, and they may even be selecting another today. So looking to clean up those watersheds. Next slide, national bulletins. So you may have seen some national bulletins come out. I know I've talked to some groups, and some groups have responded already on these national bulletin 300-23-33. LTP just means Land Treatment Program. It's titled National Water Quality Initiative Watershed and Source Water Protection Area Selection and Criteria for Planning and Implementation Phases of NWQI Fiscal Year 2024. So that provides not only information on NWQI, but also is a way to justify withdrawing watersheds and proposing new watersheds. So we currently have 5 watersheds. We'd like to see them continue until they are successful, but we would consider removing them if we reached a point where we think nothing else is happening, or we're not making further progress within the watershed. So the deadline for that, or the action required by date on that, is 28th of this month. So we're taking feedback on that, as well as National Bulletin 300-23-28, which is refining source water protection and local priorities for fiscal year 2024. Back in September of 2020, we had refined our source water, high priority source water protection area map. So in Pennsylvania, we have all kinds of streams, as you well know, and we have a lot of them that maybe can impact source water, which is the source of drinking water. But we had to refine our map down to only be 20% of the land area of our state. So we couldn't cover the whole map and say, oh, we're doing work everywhere on source water sites. And then we had some high priority practices within those sites. And this is an opportunity to adjust those as needed. So I did send a message to many of our partners about that. If you have not received information on that and are interested, please let me know. And the due date for that is August 25th that I would have to do action by. And that is the end. So my information, the best way to reach me would be email if you have comments or questions to get to me. Back to you, Susan.
Oh, there's your man. Thank you. Thank you very much. Does anyone have questions or comments for Ashley? Okay, yes. Adam Dellinger, you're on. It's
all right. Thanks, Susan. Hey, good afternoon,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Yeah, I'd just like to give a quick update on activities related to the Regional Conservation Partnership Program, also known as RCPP. Next slide, please. So at this point during the fiscal year, we're writing landowner contracts, and we're using 4 current RCPP projects at this time to do so. Those specific projects are listed here on this slide, so I don't need to read those to you, but I would like to take this opportunity to highlight that one of our newest projects, the one in red there, delisting ag impaired streams in Central PA, has been brought online since our last meeting and is already funding contracts as we speak. So in total, for all of our active RCPP projects, we have 26 applications for financial assistance for conservation BMPs that have been selected for funding this year, and that'll use about $3.25 million in RCPP funding in total. Of those applications, 14 have already been obligated and turned into contracts worth about $1 million and treating around 3,900 acres. Next slide, please. So this slide is just showing our newest projects here in Pennsylvania, and we just touched a little bit on the first project there. In addition to that, though, I'm also happy to say that since our last state technical committee meeting, that progress has been made on getting the second project listed here off the ground as well. So the Farmland Preservation and Climate Change Mitigation, RCPP project, led by PDA, the Bureau of Farmland Preservation, that was awarded $7.85 million to preserve farms and help install climate smart practices to build soil health. This is a statewide project. So the PPA, or the Programmatic Partnership Agreement, which is just another term for sort of our overarching cooperative agreement between NRCS and PDA, was executed last month in June, and funding will soon be available for landowner contracts for those climate smart practices, in addition to ag land and forest easement acquisition starting in fiscal year 24. So this will build a little bit upon the work that PDA has previously done in other RCPP projects, such as Kittatinny Ridge. But as I just mentioned, the funds will be available statewide, so that'll be a good change. Okay, next slide, please. So RCPP, if your organization is interested in applying for their own project, the 2023 application period is open right now. For this round, $500 million is available for projects, and half of that funding is coming from our standard Farm Bill authorization, and the other half comes from the Inflation Reduction Act. So the project cap has been raised from $10 million per project to $25 million. That's a big change for this year. Now, if you're interested, proposals are due by close of business on August 18th. So if you or your organization has an interest in this opportunity, please be sure to reach out as soon as possible. But if you're not quite ready just yet, this program will continue to be well funded, and I anticipate there should probably be another application period starting in early 2024. So next slide, please. But that's all I have for today. If you have any questions, here's my contact information. Feel free to reach out, and thank you for your time.
So as Adam indicated, it's really important if anybody is interested in applying for an RCPP grant, or it's actually not a grant, but it's a funded proposal. What we need is really for you to meet with Adam and myself. That becomes critical because that will influence how your proposal is ranked. So it's really important that if you're thinking or contemplating submitting something, that you get with Adam and I, Denise Coleman, as soon as possible, so that we can help you go over some of the new technical assistance guidelines, some of the new NFO procedures, and really get with you so that we can make sure you succeed in receiving funding. So that's all on that, Susan.
Okay. All right. And are there priority areas that are named in that?
Well, we are part of a priority area. The Chesapeake Bay watershed is a critical conservation area.
It's pretty wide open. Okay.
But also, you can go for state or regional request. So 50% of the money goes to conservation critical areas, critical conservation areas, and then 50% is spread to those that are not in those areas. And so in Pennsylvania, critical conservation area is the Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yeah, so it's about 2:45 and we're just about done. I did want to say we had a request. Our next meeting will be October 19th, Thursday, October 19th. And we did have a request for a potential topic. What do you want to talk about that? Of legacy sediments. I don't know. It was suggested, but if there are topics that anyone would like to suggest, I'm open and we'd like to mix it up. If there are projects that have been working and are closing out, or folks that want to present, please contact myself or Denise Coleman or anyone really that you work with in NRCS to suggest a topic for one of these upcoming meetings. I have the future dates for 2024 on the screen there, so you can mark them on your calendar now. And Denise wants to present our strategic plan, I believe.
So after we get done today, with this meeting, we will release our 2023 to 2027 strategic plan. And it's our 5-year work plan that kind of we lay out, we plan the work, and then we're going to work the plan. So all of our outreach, all of our annual business plans, all of our any of our work will stem from this strategic plan. So
where do I find it?
Go forward. We'll be sending that out to members this evening, electronic copies, and just want to make you aware of it. If you would like a paper copy instead, just let us know and we will get a paper copy in the mail to you. So, with that said, thank you, everybody. Thanks for being on today.
Okay, I see we have I'm sorry. So I just saw we had a chat question. Looks like Ryan already answered it.
And thanks to Susan and Ted Evans. They are always good coordinators and bringing us together. So thank you very much.
Hey, does anyone have anything for the good of the order? If not, we'll give you 10 minutes back. Go ahead, Sedalia. Please.
I stand over here.
Yeah.
And the microphone's here, so the microphone's here, so you're welcome to come over here. We have Sedalia Cornelio that's here in the state office that would like to say a few words. Go ahead.
I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Sedalia Cornelio, and I represent the Dongola Foundation for Community and Economic Development. And I've been in touch with Susan and Denise and just learning about the NRCS office and the work that they're doing for the state. And I had a really interesting conversation this morning with the Veterans Affairs Office in Central PA region, and they were talking about food security. So I'd love to, learn more about the community in terms of what folks are doing on the ground and connecting resources to communities who are facing barriers to food security. So I think that's one of the topics that has been coming up. I visit different nonprofits throughout Pennsylvania and just kind of learning about the work that they're doing, primarily, specifically nonprofit consulting, as well as program development, to learn about what are some of the challenges that they've been having prior to the pandemic in terms of accessing resources and funding to do the work. And that's the number one topic has been food security. So, but I just wanted to introduce myself, and please feel free to reach out to me. Susan, I'm sure I can give my contact information up, but I'd like to get to know the technical committee and just really kind of learn more about what everyone's doing and how I can better support NRCS and work that they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, and Bob asks, the practice is listed on the NRCS website, and Ryan is quick to respond. I don't know, have the climate smart practices been added to the field office tech guide, or are they available on our website?
Hey, Susan, this is Ryan.
Yes.
So yeah, he was asking about the PISP practices.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the key is with those, so that they are in my slides. But the key is with those, not all scenarios of every practice ended up having a big enough increase to warrant a PISP payment. So you can't just go by the practice as saying whether it's going to have an increased payment or
I
not.
see.
So if someone has an individual question on it, like their specific contract and a specific practice in their contract, they can follow up with their local office, and they'll be able to let them know if that one would be eligible for a PISP. So.
Great. Okay, thank you, Ryan.
Yep, no problem.
Okay, and with that, if there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and end the meeting. Thank you all and have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye-bye.